We're all someone's idiot.
You know that relative is saying that implies no intelligence is superior to another. Indeed, we all tend to think that it's others who are the idiots, that we're better than that.
Besides, we understand how the world works, right? While others don't. There's an interesting exercise where you ask people to rate their own intelligence compared to the rest of the population.
Interesting exercise, as I was saying, because according to it, almost everyone thinks they're above average.
A few people who are realistic about their situation might dare to say that there are several forms of intelligence. Yes, well, at some point it will still be useful to explain that they're good at what they do, even if they've never gotten their diplomas. And even though there are relatively objective markers of intelligence, like the well-known IQ,
which are measurable and therefore allow for ranking,
the intelligence quotient is not the same as intelligence, and by itself does not allow us to determine whether or not someone is dumb. In fact, with a high IQ, you might think faster and about many things at once, but that doesn't stop you from making a stupid decision. And yes, while you need a powerful processor to run TikTok, a middle schooler's calculator is enough to solve the equations of general relativity. Having a big brain is good, but knowing how to use it
is even better. So, can intelligence and its counterpart, stupidity, actually be measured?
Not by IQ, memory, knowledge, or school grades, but by what comes out of all that, meaning our actions or our decisions. But the thing is, at first glance, we're still no further ahead. Because when it comes to judging a decision, we're going to be about as biased as when we judge our own intellect. Honestly, that official who decided to build a nuclear plant right behind your house is really a big idiot who's ruining the landscape. Or maybe he's someone who's going to reduce carbon emissions in the long run, despite the stubborn folks who cling to their diesel. By the way, all those climate alarmists yelling about the end of the world can't even see that it's hot in summer and cold in winter, just like it's always been. It's those same climate alarmists who make fun of climate skeptics who, even though skeptic is in their name, can't even trace a piece of information back to its source and don't know how to read an IPCC report. Those triple-vax sheep who happily let themselves get poisoned by Big Pharma, and those idiot anti-vaxxers who scream about not enough perspective just because they're afraid of a shot, and the list goes on. The right-wing idiots and the leftist morons, atheists versus religious extremists, people who think the earth is round versus flat earthers, vegans against meat eaters. In short, as you can see, we're back to square one. We're all someone else's idiot.
So,
how do we do it? Could we find an objective way to measure someone's stupidity, to rank them above or below someone else? A method that would finally allow us to say, this guy is an idiot. A real one, pure, born and bred. And above all, a method that would allow us to place ourselves on the curve, but especially to put our decisions into perspective, and by doing so, influence ourselves enough, so that our decisions are better. Well, maybe.
today I'd like to talk to you about an essay by Carlo Maria Cipolla. Carlo is an Italian economic historian, born in 1922 in Pavia and passed away in 2000.
He was a professor at the University of California, Berkeley in the United States, and he notably studied the link between literacy and economic development, as well as epidemics and their consequences on society. And his writings are characterized by their humor. Cipolla is able to approach serious subjects lightly, which doesn't take anything away from the quality of his analyses, but actually makes them more accessible. Basically, the guy really knew how to teach. But today, we're going to talk about one of his essays, first published in 1976, which originally wasn't supposed to be shared outside his circle of friends. But, you see, what was supposed to be just a joke turned out to be so well thought out and written with such well-balanced humor that this essay spread more and more widely and is now known as the 5 Laws of Stupidity by Carlo Cipolla. So, we'll have to start with a little disclaimer. Indeed, even though Cipolla is a renowned academic and his analysis is very well thought out, his essay on the laws of stupidity was originally meant to be just a joke. So don't look for sources or footnotes referring to statistical studies supporting his statements.
There aren't any.
We'll see that his analysis holds up because it's based on logical reasoning and empirical observations, but it doesn't rely on any statistical data, and as it stands, it can't be verified. Well, on the other hand, it's really funny, so we're not going to hold back because of that, right? I'll add that it was written in English, and that in Taylor Swift's language, stupid can be both an adjective and a noun. But in French, calling someone a stupid is pretty awkward, so we're going to use the full creative range of the French language to describe those who were sick on the day brains were handed out.
Especially since if a renowned academic like Cipolla can show so little kindness, I don't see why I should make any effort myself. So let's start reading this essay right away.
Law number 1. Everyone underestimates the number of stupid individuals in society.
Earlier, we saw that everyone, or almost everyone, overestimates their intelligence, which would tend to imply that, for each of us, we're surrounded by idiots, and yet, according to this first law, we're still far from the truth.
We all underestimate the number of fools around us. It sounds pretty trivial when you put it like that, even downright vague, needlessly mean, and not adding anything to the discussion.
And yet, just look at the reasoning that Cipolla uses. In fact, he explains that we're regularly surprised by the fact that people we've considered rational and intelligent in the past suddenly turn out to be incredibly stupid.
That, day after day, with incredible regularity.
We get interrupted in our activities by idiots who suddenly and totally unpredictably show up in unlikely places, circumstances, and times just to mess something up.
Moreover,
we are, on a daily basis, subject to reasoning biases that make us judge people's intelligence superficially based on their level of education, their way of dressing, their height, their weight, or simply whether or not they wear glasses. Fourth, we are more likely to judge someone who is rich or high-ranking in a company as intelligent.
Similarly, if he has had a higher education or speaks eloquently, and in doing so, according to Cipolla, it is quite illusory to try to assess the number of dumb people present in society.
Because according to this law, whatever estimate we make, we will underestimate the real number.
And this leads us to the second great law of stupidity. Western culture favors an egalitarian approach to life.
Geneticist and sociologist Saint Genis proved with an impressive array of data and scientific formulas that all men are naturally equal, and that if some are more equal than others, it is due to nurture, not nature. Basically, if you're born into a good family and your dad's wallet is there to help you get started in life, that all comes from nurture. But if everyone starts out with the same things in life, social gaps disappear. Well, Cipolla disagrees with this and wants to offer an exception to this classic view of society and human beings. In fact, he tells us that no, we are not all equal. Some people are stupid and others are not, and this difference is determined only by nature, not by any social condition.
Note that I've been quoting him directly all this time. And to continue, well, a person will be stupid just as another person will be a redhead.
A person belongs to the group of fools just as another belongs to a blood group. And society has nothing to do with it. A stupid person is born stupid by an act of providence. And if Cipolla claims to be convinced that stupidity is a trait that is either genetic or inherited in some way, he also loudly asserts that he is not a reactionary trying to reintroduce social segregation based on race or social class. In fact, he firmly claims to believe that stupidity is a perfectly non-discriminatory trait that appears in any class or social group, in any ethnicity or culture, and that always in the same proportion. And that's what his second great law states. The probability that a person is stupid is independent of any other of their characteristics. And yes, there's no eugenics or fascism in that. Right, whether you're white, black, tall, short, European, African, Asian, rich, or poor, you can be just as likely to be intelligent as to be completely dumb. When you study very large numbers, you realize some pretty surprising things. For example, whether it's among a population of Inuit in the far north, Aborigines in the Australian outback, European city dwellers, or Chinese farmers, no matter the geographical or social background of the individuals, the ratio of boys to girls at birth remains the same, with a very slight male predominance. How does that happen? We don't know. What we do know, however, is that we are likely to find this kind of constant almost everywhere. That's precisely what is called the law of large numbers, and Cipolla theorizes that stupidity is one of those traits whose probability of occurrence does not depend on any other factor.
Thus, we find the same percentage of fools whether we consider very large or very small groups.
Cipolla then explains that he carried out analyses on the people around him at his university. So, analysis, this is the moment when I remind you to keep in mind the nature of this paper.
Anyway, according to Cipolla, the university is a good place to do statistics.
Indeed, you find people from all social classes there, from workers to affluent professionals.
Students, administrators,
Professors. By taking an interest in people from the working class,
Cipolla estimated a fraction of fools,
which turned out to be higher than what he had theorized. First law, everyone underestimates the number of stupid individuals in society.
He then looked for the origins of this stupidity in segregation, poverty, or even lack of education.
except that as he moved up the social ladder, he found that the same ratio prevailed among university employees.
And among the students.
Even more impressive were the results among the professors.
Whether in a large university or a small college, a famous institution or an obscure one, he claims to have found the same proportion of stupid professors. Stunned by these results, he decided to extend his research to a specially selected group, to a true elite, the Nobel Prize winners.
And the result confirmed the supreme powers of nature.
The probability that a person is stupid is independent of any other of their characteristics. And indeed, even among Nobel Prize winners, there are guys who were dropped on their heads as babies. It sounds a bit unbelievable when you put it like that. And yes, the Nobel Prize is supposed to reward important scientific discoveries.
So it must be reserved for geniuses, right? The probability that a person is stupid is independent of any other of their characteristics. So there are fools among geniuses.
But that doesn't mean anything.
Nobel Prize winners who talk nonsense like crack addicts, they exist, and it even has a name, Nobelitis. When someone receives a Nobel Prize, it's usually related to a very specific field of expertise. But that doesn't say anything about their skills in any other field. However, if winning a Nobel Prize does predict one thing, it's that the laureate will get all the media attention. And since the authority bias makes us ask these authorities for their opinion on anything and everything, well, we're going to ask the laureate questions about society, politics, or any other field that's not their own. But as you know, opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one, and most of the time they stink. So the laureate is going to give his opinion, even if it's nonsense, on a subject he doesn't know. And because he's a Nobel Prize winner, labeled a genius by the media, we're going to hang on his every word.
And gaining confidence, our laureate is going to spout more and more nonsense. Let's take, for example, the infamous case of Luc Montagnier. Luc Montagnier is the one who received the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2008 for his discovery of HIV.
And in principle, to discover a virus, well, you can't be an idiot.
But that didn't stop. During the COVID crisis, Mr. Montagnier, who already believed in the memory of water, from claiming that the COVID virus was a genetic hybrid made with HIV genes. For years, the world's leading virologists had already been warning against Montagnier's claims.
In 2017, around 40 Nobel Prize winners co-signed an open letter asking him to stop his delusions, especially about anti-vax ideas or homeopathy.
And yes, you can be a Nobel Prize winner and still be a little crazy.
And he's far from being the only one.
And yes, remember, if you think you have an idea of how many Nobel Prize winners are affected by Nobelitis, well, you're definitely underestimating it.
Linus Pauling, who won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1954, claimed that vitamin C cures cancer. William Shockley, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1956, believed that black people have a lower IQ than white people.
James Dewey Watson, who won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1962, thought there was a link between the sun and libido to explain the Latin lover stereotype. Brian David Josephson, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1973,
believed that quantum physics explained telepathy, and believed in the existence of anti-paranormal propaganda.
Carrie Meese, who won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1993, claimed that astrology works and that HIV does not cause AIDS. Now, this one is going to hurt you.
Erwin Schrödinger.
Yes, the guy with the cat. Well, he was really into clairvoyance and telepathy.
But that's not enough to call them idiots. And how do you know they're not right anyway?
I'm getting to that.
That's the third law. But I'll finish with the second by saying this. The second law is great because it puts all social groups on an equal footing. Feminist movements can take from it that men are no less likely to be idiots.
Underdeveloped countries can see that, after all, developed countries aren't that advanced, since they have just as many idiots as they do.
But this law is also frightening in that way. Whether you move in intellectual circles or among your colleagues at the factory, whether you play golf with the rich or serve soup at a soup kitchen.
You are surrounded by the same number of congenital idiots.
And I can already hear an objection coming.
What a coincidence. The idiots are the anti-vaxxers. Right, the fools are always the others.
So, have we come back to the starting point? The one that says we're all someone else's fool?
Well, actually, the most beautiful thing about the 5 laws of stupidity is the third one, which will give us a clear and objective definition of what an idiot is.
And yes, it's always easier to see stupidity in others. And the definition of stupidity is, like opinions and assholes, everyone has their own, even though often an idiot is simply someone who doesn't think like us.
So, rather than sticking to this definition that doesn't get us very far, allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce you to Cipolla's matrix. It will allow us to classify people into 4 main categories and show us that a Nobel Prize winner can also be a complete fool. Imagine a graph with an x-axis and a y-axis. It will help us classify people based on 2 characteristics.
No more.
On the x-axis, we will classify people who, for a given action, will either personally benefit from it or be harmed by it.
And on the y-axis, we'll create a benefit for a third party or harm for a third party.
Be careful. We're talking here about benefit or harm in a broad sense, not necessarily financial.
It can be saving or wasting time, healing or getting hurt, breaking or repairing a physical object, or ending up in a better or worse mood.
Basically, anything that can be considered a benefit or a harm. If you take an action that will create a benefit for yourself while also creating a benefit for other people, congratulations, you fall into the category that Cipolla calls the intelligent ones.
So I said that it doesn't have anything specifically to do with financial considerations, but still, a good example is someone who starts a business.
For example, the plumber who comes to fix your leaking sink is doing something that you can't or don't want to do yourself, thus providing you with a service, and you pay him. Everyone wins in this situation. If you create a benefit for someone else without creating one for yourself, or by causing yourself harm, you're in the category that Cipolla calls helpless. The problem with the word helpless is that, again, it's hard to translate. It can be understood as hopeless, defenseless, powerless, without resources, or even incapable. But none of these translations really fit the concept.
So instead, I suggest we talk about the selfless, the generous, or even the naive, or the suckers.
If you give $10 to a bum, you're creating a loss of $10 for yourself, but you've created a benefit for someone else.
But by repeatedly doing selfless favors, you can also become the target of the third category theorized in Cipolla's matrix, the bandits.
The bandit is the one who creates a benefit for himself while causing harm to others. And of course, the first one that comes to mind is the thief.
But again, don't think of benefits and harm only in terms of money. A toxic person, for example, falls into the category of bandits. For example, imagine a colleague who badmouths you to the boss just to look good. He gets a benefit, and you get harmed. Anyway, I think you already understand where all this is leading us. And since I'm about halfway through my script, I want to take this opportunity to say that if you're still here, it means you're curious about what's next, so I highly encourage you to subscribe.
That way, the YouTube algorithm will recommend more general knowledge videos to you, and I'll get more subscribers. It's a win-win, so subscribe, it's a smart move.
And so, of course, in the last part of the chart, we find the people who harm others while also harming themselves. Welcome to the stupidity zone. And so,
The third and most important of Cipolla's laws of stupidity tells us this. A stupid person is someone who causes harm to someone else or to a group of people, while they themselves gain no benefit from it and may even
Suffer harm themselves.
When first confronted with this matrix, a reasonable person instinctively responds with skepticism. This is because a rational person has difficulty conceiving of or understanding irrational reasoning.
Sticking with Cipolla, let's take a look at what our daily life looks like. We all remember times when someone did something that resulted in a gain for them and a loss for us. We were dealing with a bandit. Whether it's a scam, someone who wasted our time, or the neighbor who borrows a drill and never returns it. We also all remember someone who benefited us at their own expense. We've dealt with someone generous or someone naive. Indeed, grandma who gives you $50 on your birthday is generous. But Gene Kevin, who has been regularly lending you money for 10 years without ever seeing a single repayment, he's just naive. Likewise, we've all experienced a situation where someone benefited both themselves and us. These are the so-called intelligent people. However, it's not these kinds of actions that fill our days. On the contrary, most of the time we face situations that waste our time. Money, appetite, or health, and all of that because of the unlikely actions of a stupid person who has nothing to gain by causing us trouble. And no one can really understand or know why this person does it. And, in fact, there is no rational explanation, or if there is, it's only one. This person is stupid. Come on, nothing beats some examples.
Let's take the case of carpooling. Imagine someone who offers to drive their colleagues to work every day in exchange for part of the cost of gas.
In this situation, everyone pays less for their commute than if they had done it alone. Everybody wins. This person is smart. Now let's imagine another person who every day drives their colleague to work and in 10 years at the company has never asked for any compensation. This person is either generous or naive. In a third case, we also have the one who always finds an excuse to get rides from others without ever giving any compensation. As you can see, he falls into the category of bandits. And now, think of the one who promises to give his colleagues a ride, arrives half an hour late to pick them up, and still manages to get lost on the way. Because of him, everyone is late for work, including himself.
Ladies and gentlemen, the fool.
For fun, let's take the example of YouTube again. First, you have the YouTuber who creates quality content, allowing his subscribers to have a good time. Thanks to YouTube money, he's going to earn money by doing something he enjoys.
But by featuring less well-known colleagues in his videos, he will bring more subscribers to their channels, benefiting himself, his colleagues, and his audience.
This YouTuber is smart. You also have the YouTuber who, for example, will publicly defend a scam victim. By helping this person, he gains nothing and, even worse, ends up facing threats and lawsuits. Personal harm and benefits for someone else. That's what we call being selfless. And now, consider the case of this YouTuber, or the streamer, for that matter, whose channel's very existence revolves around the idea of hurting others. Through feuds, for example.
In order to increase their popularity by claiming virtue points.
By explaining how he is the good guy, while disparaging others by spreading lies about them.
Trying to ruin their reputation.
Or even getting their sponsors taken away. You all know who I'm talking about. And you're probably all thinking of someone else. Here we have a bandit. But be careful, dear bandit. Make sure you keep your nose clean, because by acting like this, you're turning the whole YouTube game against you. And if it turns out that you yourself are much less virtuous than you claim to be, if you stumble, all the colleagues you've dragged through the mud won't hesitate to remind you by kicking you when you're down. By doing so, you will have harmed others, while also harming yourself. Welcome to the Fool's Club. Yeah, but with that definition, anyone can do something stupid and be called a fool.
Exactly.
And that's why I like this way of seeing things. By being objective, instead of allowing us to indulge in the idea that the idiots are always someone else,
It shows us that anyone can commit stupid acts.
If we think about it a little, we can all recognize ourselves in an action that puts us in the bottom left of the matrix.
And that's not very comfortable. This matrix shows us that we can all be intelligent, selfless, a crook, or as dumb as a suitcase without a handle.
But here's the thing. For Cipolla, isolated actions don't matter much. We've all been in all 4 areas of this chart. What really matters, once again, is how often you stray into those areas. In certain circumstances, a person will act rationally and intelligently, but in others, they'll act like someone who's selfless or naive.
But it's a strong tendency to end up again and again in the zone of stupid actions that makes someone a fool.
And once again, what's beautiful about this definition is that it's objectively measurable.
Well, it's potentially complicated, because you would have to follow a person continuously and deeply analyze the impact of each of their actions to absolutely determine whether they're stupid or not.
But even in relative terms, it lets us compare how a group of people react in a given situation and classify them into one of these categories. But we can also deduce that some people will statistically find themselves more frequently in one or another area of the graph, thus allowing us to assign them a dominant characteristic.
So we can characterize a particular action as stupid or intelligent, but it's by constantly finding yourself in the bottom left that people will say you're dumb as a box of rocks.
But this also allows us to make a few digressions about the bandit and stupid types of people. What Cipolla calls the perfect bandit is the person who, through their actions, causes others' losses equal to their own gains.
Let me explain. The most obvious type of banditry you can imagine is, of course, theft.
A person who steals $100 from you without causing you any additional loss or harm is a perfect bandit. You lose $100, he gains. $100. On the basic graph, perfect bandits are placed on a 45-degree diagonal line that divides Area B into 2 symmetrical sub-areas. However, perfect bandits are relatively few in number.
It's more likely that if a guy steals $100 from you, he beat you up in the process, or if it's a burglar, he trashed your place first to find them.
The harm to you is greater than his benefit, so this diagonal line divides the bandit zone into 2 subzones that Cipolla calls BI and BS.
In fact, we have the rather smart bandits and the rather dumb bandits. The bandits in the BI zone are individuals whose actions bring them more benefits than the harm they cause you. Let's imagine, for example, a bandit who takes $100 from you and makes a smart investment with it.
An investment you would never have made yourself.
So that it brings him more money than it would have brought you. The higher a bandit is in the BI zone, the closer he is to intelligent people. But you come across a lot more bandits in the BS zone, meaning bandits who are close to stupidity. These are the ones whose actions cause more harm to others than benefit to themselves.
Once again,
think about the burglar who is going to steal your heirloom jewelry with great sentimental value, but from which he'll only get $20 at a gold dealer.
Or the one who will trash your house and smash all your trinkets just to get $50 or $100 in cash.
Think also about those sordid news stories where people get beaten up or killed for a cigarette or a wallet, where often there's not much in there anyway.
But once again, if we don't just think about the issue from a financial point of view.
Imagine the guy who pushes a girl to leave her boyfriend by making her big promises.
Or that just to sleep with her and then ghost her.
Well, he broke up a couple just for a quick lay.
Well, those guys are really close to stupidity.
Cipolla also gives the example of generals who cause vast destruction and countless losses in the hope of a promotion or a medal.
While the bandits are spread out in their area, the idiots are mainly concentrated along the y-axis. The reason is that the majority of stupid people harm others, but without this having any direct impact on themselves, whether positive or negative. In a large company, your incompetent colleague gives you extra work, but without suffering any particular harm, because his screw-ups aren't serious enough to get him fired. Just like your neighbor who lets his dog poop in front of your house.
He has nothing to gain from it. But you, well, you're still going to step in it,
Or the one who tagged your freshly repainted house with graffiti. He gains absolutely nothing, but he messed up your facade. All these everyday people end up along this line, causing harm that can be more or less serious, but gaining neither benefit nor suffering any real loss. However, there are people who, through their unlikely actions, not only cause harm to others, but also hurt themselves.
These are a kind of super idiots who, in our matrix, will appear somewhere in the stupidity zone to the left of the y-axis.
And now, well, we need to talk about the link between stupidity and power. Indeed, it's not hard to see that the higher a person is on the social, political, or institutional ladder, the greater their power to cause harm.
And that's why we can place a Nobel Prize winner at the bottom left of the chart. Indeed, a Nobel Prize winner has received a prestigious award for a scientific breakthrough that benefits society.
It's a win-win situation, so we should place them in the intelligent zone. But let's go back to the example of Luc Montagnier.
And just to keep making friends, you know, even though he doesn't have a Nobel, well, we could also talk about Professor Raoult.
First of all, it wasn't Montagnier who discovered HIV, but the research team he was leading.
Same goes for Raoult's research. You know, it's not his own work, but that of his teams. Most of the time, he just put his signature on the research paper. So that already greatly lessens their personal positive impact on society.
But above all, later on, with their aura as Nobel Prize winner or as director of the IHFM in Marseille,
They pushed thousands, maybe millions of people toward anti-vaccine beliefs, self-medication, and conspiracy theories during the COVID crisis.
And in doing so, Montagnier definitely fell from grace, and Raoult ended up with a whole bunch of administrative investigations on his back because of his schemes.
Not to mention his reputation.
So they did a lot of harm to society, to the point where we can consider them indirectly responsible for probably quite a few deaths, actually.
And so they shot themselves in the foot in the process. That doesn't really put them on the smart side of the matrix.
And the fact is, even though it's hard to estimate reliably, we have every right to wonder to what extent their positive impact on society makes up for, or doesn't make up for, their negative impact.
But, of course, that's not all. We can also think about the impact of a political figure, a business leader, or a military commander, whose decisions impact thousands, millions, or even billions of people.
Take, for example,
About Putin, whose is the death of thousands of people, destruction amounting to tens, even hundreds of billions of dollars,
the ostracization of Russia,
a global increase in the prices of certain goods,
A war that, at the time I am writing these lines, has lasted longer than the First World War.
all that just to not even achieve its objectives.
Trump, on the other hand.
Trump! I think he's a bandit. He got himself elected by promising to stop wars and lower the cost of living in the US. And while the exact opposite is happening, he and his associates are pocketing billions. You are free to think whatever you want about these figures and about others. You can agree with the ideas of some, reject those of others. But with Cipolla's matrix, and by trying to objectively assess the impact of their decisions, you can determine who is smart, who is a bandit.
And who is no better than a spare tire on a refrigerator?
But now that we've talked about the link between stupidity and power, we also need to talk about the power of stupidity.
Indeed, stupid people are by nature dangerous and harmful, because rational people have trouble imagining and anticipating irrational behavior. An intelligent person can understand the logic of a bandit. The actions of the bandit follow a rational pattern. Immoral, but rational.
It's simple. He wants a personal benefit.
He's certainly not smart enough to come up with a way to achieve it that would allow others to benefit as well. But his approach is still logical. And so, you can anticipate what he's going to do and protect yourself from his actions. You can put a lock on your garage door to keep a burglar out while you're away. But it's much harder to anticipate that an idiot will smash it in by backing into it with his truck and leave without even letting you know.
A fool will harm you for no reason, without gaining any benefit, without a plan or scheme, and often even without intention.
And all of this at the most unlikely times and places.
You have no rational way to anticipate their actions.
No way to tell when the fool will strike.
When faced with a stupid individual, you are at their mercy.
Because their actions don't follow any rational plan.
According to Cipolla, it follows that, first, we are generally surprised by an attack of stupidity, and second, even if we are aware of it, we can't organize a rational defense.
Because the attack itself is devoid of rationality.
Friedrich Schiller wrote, "Against stupidity, even the gods fight in vain." Well.
But let's now get back to the fourth law of stupidity.
The people located in the upper left area of the matrix, especially the naive ones, are not able to judge the danger of a stupid person, is quite logical.
In fact, their main characteristic is to get taken advantage of. On the other hand, it's more surprising to see that intelligent people and even bandits also underestimate the damage fools can do.
Indeed, when faced with stupidity, most people give in to feelings of self-satisfaction and contempt, convinced of their own superiority.
Whereas instead, they should do everything they can to build a defense system against fools. Cipolla tells us that we're tempted to think that a fool can only harm himself.
But that's forgetting that, from the crowd, a fool capable of doing serious damage can emerge.
Similarly, sometimes we might be tempted to team up with a fool for some venture, or even think about using him for our own advantage.
But doing that can have disastrous effects.
Because, first, doing that is based on a complete misunderstanding of the very nature of stupidity. And second, it gives the fool extra room to do harm. In fact, if you think you can use an idiot to make him do something and take the blame for you, you're underestimating his ability to mess things up in a completely unexpected way. And drag you down with him. To illustrate this, I can't resist telling you a true story, though unfortunately I can't give any names, even though it's more than 20 years old. It's the story of a crooked boss, almost like a mobster, who does some dirty scheming to avoid paying taxes. And through fake jobs and shady investments, he entrusts everything to his mouse, a young fool who put all her intelligence into her cleavage instead of her skull. The task of keeping an eye on a gigantic pile of cash that he deposits in an account under her name. But this crooked boss made the mistake of entrusting a fairly simple task to a fool. Instead of watching over the loot, this idiot spent a good amount of it drawing the attention of the tax authorities with her completely disproportionate lifestyle. And once she was audited, she stupidly just said where the money came from.
Both of them ended up in jail.
But also imagine the story of this guy who sends a friend, and in this case an idiot, to drive a car carrying some not-so-legal things.
The idiot drives under the old highway and crashes the car into a wall.
Looking for the cops.
Prison. Or just imagine what would happen if you gave an idiot the simple task of mailing a letter with an important check inside.
And he loses it along the way. And all this leads us to the fourth great law of stupidity. Non-stupid people always underestimate the power of stupid individuals to cause harm.
In particular, they forget that at any time, in any place, and under any circumstance, dealing with and / or associating with stupid people always turns out to be a costly mistake. But now, instead of considering benefits and harm on the scale of individuals, let's consider them on the scale of society. And we'll consider society as the algebraic sum of the individuals who make it up. And if we do that, the fifth law of stupidity, the most fundamental of all, says this: a stupid person is the most dangerous type of person. And its corollary, a stupid person is more dangerous than a bandit. Let's go back to our perfect bandit from earlier, the one who is on a diagonal line in the bottom right area. In fact, his actions neither create nor destroy wealth or well-being. He simply transfers $100 from your wallet to his. A transfer has taken place, but on the scale of society, the total amount of wealth or well-being remains the same. If a society were made up only of perfect bandits,
The total amount of wealth or well-being would remain constant. We're just dealing with transfers from one person to another.
But when fools get to work, it's a different story.
By causing losses to others without generating any gains for themselves, they make society as a whole poorer. It's the same, to a lesser extent, for the bandits from the BS zone we mentioned earlier. The same goes for the naive people who are in the lower part of their zone. The people who are there cause more harm to themselves than the benefits they bring to others. In summary, all the people or all the actions that are to the left of the diagonal that crosses the graph impoverished society, whether in terms of wealth, well-being, or anything else, these are harmful actions that on a societal scale do more harm than good.
And it is understood that for the actions or people who are on the other side, well, it's the opposite.
Some of the generous or naive people and the bandits contribute to society, but according to Cipolla's matrix, the hallmark of an intelligent action or person is to systematically bring something positive. In the same way, the bandits leaning more towards stupidity and the biggest suckers have a negative impact on society. But the ones who do this systematically are the fools. And so, logically, if a bandit causes harm, even serious harm,
but gains a benefit from it,
on a societal scale, his impact is still less negative than that of a fool who ruins everything and gets himself hurt in the process.
For example,
if a robber breaks into your business and takes the cash drawer, he causes you harm, but the money will still circulate in society. He's a bandit. Now imagine he breaks into your business, takes the cash drawer, but it's secured and the bills are sprayed with indelible ink, making them unusable. And on top of that, his face is on the surveillance footage, and he gets caught. Well, he's an idiot. Because unlike the first case, you've still lost your money. Your door is still broken, but the cash doesn't benefit anyone else.
and the robber himself ends up in jail.
So maybe you have insurance, right? But that doesn't instantly fix the door. Nor does it calm your cashier's trauma, not to mention that it still costs someone money, right? Since it costs the insurance company and by extension the people who pay premiums.
Everyone loses.
On a societal level, it has become poorer. And that's why, for society as a whole, a stupid person is even more dangerous than a bandit who would commit an equivalent act. And so, stupid individuals are the most dangerous type of people.
And the more power you give them, the more this proves to be true.
At the end of his article, Carlos Cipolla invites us to reflect on society. And even though his essay doesn't have scientific foundations, I'll let you think about his conclusions. According to the second law of stupidity, the fraction of stupid people is a constant that is not affected by time, space, race, class, or any other socio-cultural or historical variable. It would therefore be a serious mistake to believe that the number of stupid people in a declining society is higher than in a developing society. Both societies are plagued by the same percentage of stupid people. The difference between the two is that in the one that functions poorly, the stupid members of society are allowed by the other members to become more active and to make more decisions. And two, there is a change in the composition of the non-stupid part of the population with a proportional increase in the numbers of naive people and bandits closest to stupidity. Basically, what causes the decline of a population is not the increase in the number of stupid people. It's the increase in the number of bandits and naive people, and especially that more power is given to idiots. Cipolla tells us that he assumes this based on the studies he has conducted as a historian, and where he observes that the fraction of stupid people does not change, but that a society that progresses is one where intelligent people manage to keep fools away from important decisions, while at the same time producing enough benefits for themselves and the rest of society. On the other hand, a society where the proportion of fools is the same, but where they are free to make their stupid decisions, and where bandits with stupid tendencies are allowed to proliferate,
Is doomed to go downhill.
I'll repeat what I said at the beginning. This essay was, above all, a joke. But a joke that turned out to be so well thought out that it went international! But when writing this, Cipolla didn't leave any footnotes to support his statements with figures. However, whether this reasoning is valid or not, the conclusion he draws from it seems logical to me no matter what.
If we want to live in a society that aims for the greatest benefit for the greatest number of its members, we must not let idiots have power.
That's why it's important to teach younger generations critical thinking.
To rely on verified scientific data and not on popular beliefs.
And to debunk stupid ideas so they don't spread.
And thus, we won't reduce the number of congenital idiots in society. But we'll make sure that the only ones they harm are themselves.
And in this way, society as a whole will become richer, whether in goods, money, knowledge, or even well-being. There you go.
And so concludes the essay on the 5 Laws of Stupidity by Carlos Cipolla. It's funny. It's profound.
It has the merit of eliminating the assertion that we're all idiots in somebody else's eyes.
In short.
Personally, I like it. But what I like the most is this matrix. It doesn't just help identify fools. It also makes you smarter. In fact, at the end of the paper, there's another interesting thing. A blank matrix to help us evaluate our relationship with a particular person. On the vertical axis, you evaluate whether your relationship brings a benefit or harm to the person in question. And on the horizontal axis, you do the same for yourself. If your relationship brings benefits to both of you, then that's perfect. If your relationship harms both of you, or if it only brings benefits to the other person, it's high time to end it. And if this relationship brings you benefits while being costly for the other person, it's up to you to consider, for the other person's good, ending it. Alright, but what I see in this, above all, is a matrix that allows you to evaluate your actions on a daily basis. What I'm about to do, is it going to bring me something positive? Is it going to be at someone else's expense? One aspect of stupidity might already be not thinking about that beforehand. And to embark on a disastrous venture where anyone else would have seen in advance that it was going to end in disaster. But if on a daily basis you are able to think about the impact of your actions and choose them accordingly in order to maximize your benefit and that of others. In the end, doesn't that already, in fact, at least put you on the path to intelligence? Look up at the sky, stay astronomical, and see you next time.
Hello, everyone. Well, what's all this racket? And where is he? You know his grandmother gave him a guitar. Yeah, well, he started a blues band. I let them use the recording studio. Damn, I have to see this.
And Miss Mifflin is a new song we can play.
Fais voir le texte. Oui, ok.
Do you like it?
On fera avec, mais tu pourrais faire un effort. Quand le temps me manque et que tout va trop vite, je ne fonce plus au fast-food, j'évite. 500 millilitres de bon lait bien dosé, un quart de mes besoins dans quelques gorgées. Why food, mon allié du quotidien. Coco, banane, vanille, ça fait plus de bien. Fraise, cerise, mangue, un goût pour chaque envie. Citron, citron vert, pêche, orange ou vanille. Ça ne remplace pas un bon petit repas, mais quand t'as faim et plus le temps, pourquoi pas? Plutôt qu'un fast-food trop calorique et salé, une bouteille white food, plus simple, mieux dosé.
Eat Item Solo.
90% c'est malin. Tu le tapes à la commande ou tu cliques sans hésiter. Le lien est juste en description pour économiser. Y-Food, mon allié du quotidien. Coco, banane, vanille, ça fait plus de bien. Alors, si le temps te file entre les doigts, pense à Y-Food et au code astrono. Tu verras la différence chez toi. Joseph, t'es sûr que tu veux pas prendre un parolier?